Previously on Unpacked.
So you didn't know at the time that you can actually just go to a doctor for a legal abortion.
Because people are going to judge you for having an abortion.
Nobody should go through that. It was horrible.
This is part 2 of this conversation on abortion. We continue to unpack with both Lebogang and Gaopalelwe.
So let's come to your journey. You say that the first time you heard the word abortion, you were much younger and it was in such a negative context. When did it now become a reality for you?
It became a reality for me in 2009. I was in my first year of university at Wits, the first person to go to university at home. Everybody was excited.
Lots of pressure.
Lots of pressure. Everybody was excited. I was on top of my game. I was ready. I met a guy much older than me, and he was actually a police officer. He started asking me out. I was a bit like, no, I don't want to do this. I was living in Alexandra with my dad, so I would commute to varsity. Then he would wait for me and say, come on, let's go for an ice cream. And we ended up doing it. And one day we were commuting our love. It was long distance because I was living with my dad and I was not actually allowed to date. My dad said, you date after university. So I kept this to myself and my cousin who I was living with. One day he said to me, don't you want to come do your assignment at my place? I mean, I'm not going to work. I miss you. We only see each other on the road, you know. I went there and I did my assignment, but long story short, he ended up assaulting me sexually. I was 19, I remember. I remember telling him no, and him just continuing. And I just remember just looking at the ceiling and letting him do what he wants to do. Because I couldn't fight him off. He was so strong. And eventually, when he was done, I remember him saying to me, but did I have to fight for it? And I was just like, what are you talking about? I was quite confused. He went to shower and I packed my things and I ran. I don't even remember how I got to the taxi, but I got to the taxi and I got home and I just was traumatized by the rape. That's all I could think about. I didn't think pregnancy. I didn't think, did he ejaculate inside me? I didn't think about any of that. I was just like, oh my God, what happened? Who do I tell? And I basically went into a depression.
You suffered depression because of a sexual assault, which at the time, you know, from what I can gather, is something that you had not even processed. So even the thought, and I mean, I'm sure many people don't even think about that, where they'll say, but if you've been raped, why don't you just already go get morning after pill? Why don't you do something about it? That's the least necessary, possibly, of the thoughts going through your mind at that time.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, nobody ever spoke to me about what happens after sex. It was always, is she having sex? And then they would shout at me or try to talk to me, but they never really told me what happens or even what's the procedure after rape. So for me at the time, I remember I actually got home and I immediately took a bath. I did not care. I did not think about police. I did not think, I was just feeling quite dirty. I was sad, I was disappointed, and I was hurt. And that's the emotions that I was going through at the time. I went quiet at home. My father actually didn't notice because he thought, she's in her room studying. But I was actually sleeping all the time.
And then did your depression get diagnosed or it's something you know that you were going through at the time?
No, at the time, I only know now that it was depression. I was never diagnosed. I couldn't get out of bed. I mean, I was excited to be at university. I wasn't going to class, but eventually I had to because my father was going to pick it up. So I had to drag myself out. And I think I did it 2 weeks later because my cousin was also starting to notice, but she's not going to class. Why is she sitting in the house? That's when I started feeling sick. And I was wondering, what's wrong with me? I remember going to the school bus and smelling Tropica and wanting to vomit. And I was like, why would I want to vomit at the smell of Tropica? That's when I started to worry about what's happening with my body. And at the time, the guy who had done this was busy trying to get a hold of me. Let's talk about it. Are you okay? So I was dealing with a lot in my brain at the time.
Him saying, let's talk about it, are you okay? Was that him admitting guilt or he's basing that off of how you were reacting to him?
I think he was trying to save his own skin. I think he was trying to, he preyed on a young child. He was trying to get, to me so that I think it was just a mistake that he made, because I think he could tell that I didn't really fully understand what had happened to me. And I wasn't equipped to go home and say, I've been raped. He also knew that my dad said I can't date. So he knew I couldn't be in relationships. So that time he was pulling me in, I think he was trying to save himself from me either telling someone or saying it to someone, and he could lose his job and his whole reputation.
So now you feeling sick, what happened after that?
I started feeling sick, and that's when I started to panic. I had a friend at varsity who was the only person I felt I could trust at the time, because we were still new at university. We had just started, I think it was around June, around then at the time, or May, in first year. And I said to her, I think I'm pregnant, and I told her what happened. And she actually had an abortion at a younger age, and she told me that you can have an abortion. And I remember feeling like, wait, what? And she's like, well, you don't want anybody to know. If you are really pregnant, you can have an abortion. So that same day after we had the conversation, I used to take the taxi at downtown Joburg. So there was a chemist there. I went there and asked for a pregnancy test. I had to really find out first if I am, before I go through what she said. And I think I bought like 5.
Wow.
And I got to the house and they were all positive. I had to throw them away. I just remember beating my stomach and feeling like I don't want to have an abortion. Can this just go? Like, is there a way for it to just go? And at the time, I wasn't very tech savvy on your Googles or whatever. I didn't even have Facebook yet at the time. So I was just going through, who am I going to tell? What am I going to say? How am I going to get rid of this? And I just remember starting to hate my body from there.
So when was the moment that you then decided, okay, I'm going to do this? Because obviously you're going through this period, you're hating your body, you're hoping it just goes away.
Yeah. So I went again to speak to my friend because the changes were really getting to me. So my breasts were feeling funny. My body was just really starting to feel funny. I was always icky. And now my main focus was, I'm pregnant, and I couldn't study, I couldn't focus, and my dad is going to notice at some point. I mean, you can't hide a pregnancy forever. So I spoke to her again, and she said, you can go to a hospital, they can do it for you. And I went, and I remember the day I got there. It's a hospital, it's quite big. And I was taken from pillar to post until I got to where they do terminations. And I remember waiting there forever until a nurse finally passed, and I asked her, could you please help me? And she said, yeah, what do you need? And I'm like, I would like to have an abortion, I'm pregnant. And she said to me, okay, there's a file on the table, just fill that in with your details. And then look at the date before yours, that then your date will be after that one. And I'm like, I just didn't understand. So I went through the file and I looked at the last person who had put in their name before mine, and their date was like, I think October. And I was like, wait, does this mean my date will be October? And she was quite irritated by me. And she's like, oh, these young girls are so irritating. And she said, probably November. She wasn't even sure. So it made me feel very like, what is happening? I'm not really getting the help I need. And she said, unfortunately, there's a waiting list. Fill that in. And I said, but by the time I come back here, I'll be showing by then, surely. And she said, don't make your problems mine.
Wow.
Just fill in the form. There's nothing I can do for you. I filled it in, but I didn't put my phone number because I was like, I probably am not going to come back here because I need to do this now. So funny enough, when I walked out of the clinic, I bumped into a mother and her daughter, and they were sitting on a bench that had a flyer or a thing posted on it and written safe abortion, pain-free. So I just put down that number. And they saw me write the number, and they were like, do you want that? And I was like, yeah. And they also gave me like a little pamphlet that they had. It also said pain-free, whatever. I didn't even get a chance to talk to them. I just took the pamphlet and said thank you, and I left. And it was a clinic in Hillbrow. You could tell that the pamphlet was very amateur. It wasn't very like a very good pamphlet. So I made the call. They told me how much it was. I didn't check if it's a real clinic, a fake clinic. I just needed an abortion ASAP. And I remember them saying, yeah, it's going to cost this much. I don't have the money. I think it was 1,500. They had ranges. And I didn't have money. I couldn't ask my dad. And I decided, let me take this guy's call. Maybe he'll give me the money. So I eventually took his call, met up with him, quite triggering moment for me. And I said to him, look, the deal is I'm pregnant and I can't be pregnant, so you need to help me. And I think for his own remorse, I guess, or whatever he was going through, he just said, yeah, or to get rid of it, I'll give you the money. I'll make a plan. And I said, thank you, and I left. He made it happen. And I remember I went to the clinic in Hillbrow with my friend. It was in a flat, with my cousin, I mean. It was almost like a house, but with inside it's a clinic, I guess. So we went there and there was already people in the queue. And I came in and they said to, who's coming to do the abortion? And I said, it's me. I went inside and they said to me, we will call you. And I remember sitting at the waiting area and just like the other guest was saying, I was also hearing screams. I was early on. I think I was either 5 weeks or so by then, by that time, because a long period had gone from there. But I was early on. It was before 3 months, basically. And I waited for my turn, but I was quite nervous. And I went in there. It was 2 nurses. And I think for me, the shocker was going into the room and seeing a bucket filled with clotty, bloody stuff. And I was like, what's that? And it was like a very ugly smell. But they told me, sit down. They were preoccupied with themselves. They were just like talking together. They were not focused on explaining what's going to happen to you. They just said, sit on the bed. And you see in the movies where they have women giving birth and their legs are on something.
It's the stirrups.
Yes, I've actually never had that. They put me on that. It was the first time I've seen that. They put my legs on that. And then I sat there and I was just asking what's going to happen. And they're like, aren't you here for an abortion? And I was like, I am. Like, yeah, so that's what we're going to do. And they continued chatting while they were preparing. I didn't see any gloves. I didn't see any sterilizations. All I remember was she fit something inside my uterus and she started almost like she's drilling. And it felt like she was taking my stomach out of my body and I just was screaming. I wasn't raised by my mom. I don't use mom or mama a lot, but that day I was like, mama, yo, I was screaming. I was crying. And my cousin says she was so triggered, she stood up and tried to come, but she was told by the lady out there, no, wait, she's going to be done soon. Apparently it was 5 minutes.
But it felt forever.
It felt so long because even when they were done and they said, because I tried to hold that lady, one of the lady's hands, because she was at my head. She was holding me down as well. So I tried to hold her hand for support and she just pushed me and held me. I just remember feeling like, what the hell is happening to me? And once they were done, I was just sitting on the bed like, am I even alive after that? And they told me, you need to get up, go grab a pad, and you can go lie down. There was another room on your stomach on another bed, but be quick because there's quite a lot of people who need to go through this. And I did that. And I remember the lady who was next to me, who I found in the so-called recovery room, she was so quiet and I was just weeping. And eventually my cousin came and they said, nah, she can go. There's pads. You need to buy more pads. And we asked them, what else do we need? And they're like, if you're in pain, just get painkillers. But the pregnancy is out. Like, it's not going to get out tomorrow or whatever. It's out. I remember I was bleeding a lot. We had to take a taxi back to Alex. Luckily, we did it during the day. My dad comes home very late. Then we left. I kept asking her. I remember, this is quite a vivid memory because I kept asking her, do you see blood? Yeah, like I kept saying, do you see blood? And she kept saying, no. I was feeling quite weak, drained, tired. We got home and I just slept. I think I remember waking up the next day. And 3 days later, I started to feel cramps because they had said the pregnancy's out. It almost felt like I'm just quite sick, but this was not something I expected. Luckily, we were able to still get the same phone number. And we asked them like, hello, what should we do in this situation? Because she's having cramps, she's not okay, she's feeling sick. And they said, well, just buy painkillers. I eventually went to a clinic and they said I have an infection. And they gave me antibiotics. They asked me, did you just give birth? And I lied and said like, I just had a miscarriage. And yeah. After taking the antibiotics, I was okay. I got better after that. But now I felt like I was just holding on to this big secret because only myself, my cousin, and that man knew what had happened. Yeah.
Was he somebody that you were able to or felt comfortable to call to say it's done, or was he calling you to say, is it done?
He called. He had this. It's almost like he thought, even after giving me the money, that we're good now. So he thought, let me check up on her. She's my girlfriend. And at that time, I was like, I just wanted the money. So he was checking up. My cousin didn't even know what had happened, how I got pregnant. So she was talking to her because if she knew, it was going to be a different story. She was talking to him and updating him and stuff. But when I started feeling stronger, I completely blocked him off.
Whew. And in your case, then, would you say the place you went to was an illegal abortion clinic?
Yeah, now that I look back, I mean, I work in the field now as an activist, and it's not anywhere in the databases. It's not registered. I don't think it was a legal abortion. I do think, like the other guest story, it probably is a clinic, but there are people who are using it as well to do their own thing. Yeah.
Did you ever, think on hindsight, you spoke about a bucket of what was in the bucket?
Yeah, I think I know what was in the bucket. I think it was the fetuses they removed before I came in.
And so nobody ever explained to you, this is what the procedure is, this is how we're going to do it, this is what... They didn't say anything of that nature to you?
No, they didn't say. They just said, when we called, they just said, come tomorrow, we'll do it. You said she's not 3 months yet. She's not 12 weeks they use yet. So it will actually be quite easy. They didn't say it will be painful. They didn't say what's the procedure afterwards. I had to kind of deal with all of that on my own. Even going to the clinic, when I felt like I was sick, I went by myself then. So, yeah.
When would you say your body, when did you feel like your body had physically healed after the whole antibiotics and the infection?
I think it was like about 2 weeks later, because then I also stopped bleeding. And that's when I started feeling much stronger. But I mean, emotionally and psychologically, I don't think I was the same person.
And no one can expect that of you, considering what you had gone through. Looking back at that now, knowing what you know now, would you have done anything different?
I think knowing what I know now and being the woman that I am today, I would have pressured the hospital to do something, because that's what I do today. I actually went to a place that is supposed to offer me a safe and legal abortion. And I was treated funny and not really, it wasn't a safe space for me as a young woman. And those are the kind of issues that today I'm raising alarm on, and I'm talking about to make sure that that doesn't happen, that the minute a young woman comes, help her, So I think in hindsight, if I knew what I know now and the law and my rights, I probably would have done better talking out. But I also think at the same time, I was also trying to keep this away from my family, the shame and the disappointment in their faces. So maybe it wouldn't have been that easy, because I also didn't want them to know. And going through all of that on my own, just with my cousin, who also didn't know how to support me. She was a child too. She was a teen too, It was painful to go through it alone. And I don't think, even if I had to go back, I wouldn't tell my father, because he was going to disown me.
Is there anything from your side, Lebo, that you find surprising with the story that Gao has shared?
Wow, it's quite deep. It's very, very deep. But there's nothing really shocking, because we get these stories on a daily basis on social media, where young women have gone through such and have nobody to talk to and just want guidance and just that support, It's unfortunate that still in the 20th century, we're still dealing with the same thing our mothers dealt with, because abortion has always been there, but there's never been information, openness, and there's never been, quality services that we are supposed to get and have the right to. So it hurts for the mere fact that we still have the same stories recurring day after day to different young women.
I think what is difficult for me to grapple with is the fact that both at the times that you both went, abortions were legal. And that's something that I think we need to have more discussions about is that the conversation of illegal terminations of pregnancy still exists because of the reasons that we've been speaking about today.
No, definitely. And I think they're actually becoming more. It's 2021, but women are still preferring. Now it's no longer, maybe I actually just want the quickest way out. I'm not going to the clinic. So the problem is still there and it's worse.
So just to pick up on what we are speaking about, there are so many reasons that a person might choose to go and terminate their pregnancy. And the reality is the law right now allows for girls of certain ages, but it isn't just girls of a certain age without their parents' permission. You don't even need your partner's permission. So maybe share with me, because you actually have had more than one abortion in your life. What are the different circumstances and the different ages and what was happening in your life at the time?
Yeah. So the one we just spoke about was my first, right? And then I had a child in 2014. By that time, I had already left university and I met someone else. And now I fell pregnant again around 2015, 16. And at the time, I was not financially ready to have a child. And I was just like, okay, you've had an abortion before. It was illegal. It was so traumatic. Do you want to go through this again? And my partner at the time, we spoke extensively about whether we should continue with the pregnancy. And I personally, as the person who was pregnant, felt like he's not ready. And I was not prepared to go through it alone because I already had a child and I had been a single mother. So I knew the process. So I was like, I don't want to go through this. So I made an informed decision to say, you know what? You have the means, you have a job, go to book an appointment, have an abortion because you can't have this baby. And that's exactly what I did.
And at the time, was the partner on board with your decision?
Yes, he was supportive of whatever decision I made.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, speak to me about, was there a next time and what were the circumstances?
Yeah. It was the same partner. And this time around, we actually wanted to keep the child. And he then changed his mind. And I actually was feeling like, oh my gosh, do you have to do this and go through this alone? And the relationship was also deteriorating. I always knew I want a lot of kids. Today I have 2, and I want more. And he just it was not working out. This one, I went through it alone. I didn't even tell him on the day. He knew I was pregnant, but I didn't tell him. I just decided to go. And when I was done, he then asked me about it. And I said, no, unfortunately, I'm no longer pregnant. And he was like, but we didn't talk about it. I'm like, no, I'm moving on with my life. And I did. I moved away from that relationship as well.
So the reason I'm asking about this is because I want to obviously address some of the concerns that people will have when they're having this argument, right? And I mean, please jump in here as well, Lebo, when you have something to share. A lot of people in their arguments will say, why is it that a man doesn't get a say? What do you say to that person?
I say to that person that, unfortunately, the man only has the say after there's a child who is born, and then they have rights. But when I am pregnant, it's my body. That fetus that is in me is not considered a human being by law as yet. That's why abortion is till 20 weeks. And so on. After that, it's illegal because it's unsafe. But for me, why would you have an opinion about what I should do with my body? If I want to terminate and you don't want me to terminate, must I now go through 9 months of pregnancy because you have the right to, and it's my body? I just don't understand how we will reconcile it. Because at the end of the day, it's my body. I'm the one carrying it. My body's going to change. My body's going to go through all of it, and even the part of giving birth. So why should your opinion matter? If you're not even, by law, no man is forced to even take care of a pregnant woman. So he can decide to leave me at any time during my pregnancy. It's only after that I can go to maintenance court. But during my pregnancy, you're not even obligated to fund my clinic visits or what I eat or what I do with my body. So I don't I don't understand how we can reconcile them having an opinion unless in the relationship that's between the couple. That's something different.
And from your side, Lebo, what are your thoughts just on some of the different reasons that people will say abortion is wrong, termination is wrong?
I think firstly, what I want to say, just to add on to what the other guest is saying, is it's my body, my right type of thing, And I think women need to get to a point where they own their sexual health rights and they're able to do what makes them happy and content with termination of pregnancy and so forth. I've gotten to a point where I'm content with my decisions. I've gotten to a point where it's about me. I really don't care what people say about me, I'm also living with HIV and people will talk, yeah, you did this to yourself, you deserve to die, God hates you, you're going to be crucified, you killed babies. I get that on a daily basis because I talk about it, but I talk about it because I'm trying to assist the next person through their healing journey and through the fact that it's okay, I did it and life goes on, So for me, I really do advise women, whether older or younger, not to really care what anybody says, Even if you are a Christian, it's your relationship with God is between the two of you, And you don't have to then be penalized by a pastor or whoever because you decided that you are going to protect yourself and your interests.
In some of the work that you've done, what are some of the very rare abortion stories you think people should be hearing?
Yeah. I don't know about Ray, but for me, it's a story that is very close to my heart and I like to share because I want people to know that when they say abortion is wrong and when they stigmatize abortion, they are basically handing women and people who obviously can fall pregnant to vultures. And the story is of a woman who messaged me and said, I went and I did this and I did it illegally. It's, I think it was around 9 o'clock in the night or 10, I can't remember. And she's like, hi, Gao, please help me. The abortion has happened. The fetus is out. It's on the floor. I'm bleeding. My family's in the sitting room. I don't know what to do. And I said, sis, call them.
As in their house?
In their house. And she said, I don't know what to do. My family, they didn't know. Please help me. And this was via text and on Facebook. And I said to her, sis, I can even call you an ambulance. And she's like, they're going to find out. I basically sat for 3 hours or so begging a woman to save her own life. I said, you are going to bleed to death. I said, just tell someone. She's like, they are sitting in there. They don't know. I'm locked in my room. They think I'm sleeping. I can't, Gao, I can't. And I said to her, sis, you need to get help because you have kids that you have that need you, and you tomorrow morning when they open the door, eventually you'll be gone, and who's going to be left with your children? I don't think you deserve this. And eventually she agreed and she managed to get help. And I would check in on her on how's the family, how are people taking this? And obviously she kept being judged and whatever. But this is one story that's very close to my heart because I was sitting there just convincing her to please get help. And these are the things that we have to deal with. Because whether your opinion is that an abortion is wrong or right, at the end of the day, it's going to happen. And as a society, how we approach it determines how it happens. Do we want people to die just because we want to think abortion is wrong? You can hold your opinion. You can choose not to have it. But destigmatize it so that people can do it safely in a safe environment, so that abortion rights and sexual and reproductive rights can be respected and honored by the state and by people, because whether you believe it's wrong or right, it's going to happen, and it's going to happen illegally. That's the point.
And I think something very critical for me that I'm taking away, that I hope those that are watching take away as well, is the fact that the woman who make this very difficult decision, their lives are at risk. The fact that you will not make a phone call for help because of stigmatization and being judged and being treated a certain way is a massive, massive problem. Definitely is a massive problem. I know that we could continue for hours and hours. Lebo, thank you so much for joining in the conversation and for sharing your story. Any final words to the viewers at home? You can go ahead.
I'd like to say thank you for having me part of the show. And I think my last words is to plead to the community and to plead to everybody that can we start dealing with discrimination and stigma and start informing people, those who have the information, of course, start sharing information so that people are able to make the right and safe choices and be the voice for the voiceless.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. And from your side, final words?
Same here. Thank you so much for having me and having this conversation. I think it's so important. And I think for me, I would like people to, whether they believe abortion is wrong or right, to think about the person, the human, who will, be deterred from going to a safe place and then end up in an illegal place. There are vultures out there that are preying on women who are in desperate need of abortions. And we need to cut that cord. We need to cut that line and make sure that people have safe abortions.
Hashtag Unpacked with Relebogile. Let's continue these conversations online. Details are on your screens. And of course, thank you so much to our guests. They only represent 2 of millions and millions of untold stories out there. So the details we will put at the end of the show for organizations that you can get in touch with if you're looking for support or for help, but also share with one another because these are the realities that we are facing in our country. And of course, these are personal stories, not just an opinion on a subject that might not necessarily be affecting you immediately. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good night.
Next time on Unpacked.
You were formerly a domestic worker,
yes,
but your life is something completely different today.
There is no regulation. The regulation is there, but it's not adhered to.
If someone is wearing a uniform and is working as a domestic worker, we need to respect that person because those people raise doctors.
There is more to that woman in your house who's wearing an apron.
Unpacked with Relebogile Mabotja. New episodes weekdays at 5:30 p.m. on my YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe. Television edited broadcasts weekdays at 5 p.m. Open up to S3.